All right, here we go. A brand new Flyers Daily for the 16th of October, 2025. Flyers Daily presented as usual by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Got lots of cool stuff coming for you in this episode. A little preview of the Flyers Jets game coming up tonight. We're going to read through some of the comments from yesterday's episode, which I thought were pretty interesting, especially regarding the conversation that we had in regards to that note that I got from Chris about the Flyers not hitting enough. So we'll get to some of those comments and react to those as well. And we will also have a conversation about Sam Ersson and Dan Vlader. So Charlie O'Connor from PHLY Flyers coverage did a nice introductory article on Dan Vlader and trying to get to know the new Flyers goaltender who has got 2 games under his belt already. 1 win, 1 loss, both against Florida. Played well in both games. And we'll talk about the 2 of those goalies because Brian Smith, my radio partner for Flyers pregame, intermission, and postgame, had posed something to me. I think it was in the postgame show on Monday night after the Florida win that I totally disagreed with him about. Agreed with him in partial theory, but disagreed in another area, which we'll discuss. So that's coming up. That's called a radio tease for your liking. All right, it is the Flyers and Winnipeg tonight. Now, last year, Winnipeg was an unbelievable team last year. Just unbelievable. They were so good right out of the gate in the regular season. They got off to a tremendous start. They were just unbeatable. Connor Hellebuyck, I think, ended up playing in 63 games last year, which is a wild number. They won the President's Trophy with 116 points. They went 56, 22, and 4. Their goal differential last year was plus 86. Hellebuck's numbers were off the charts, too. I mean, 925 save percentage, a goals against average of 2. His advanced goaltending analytic numbers were all good. Just good across the board. Really good team. And a team that it is not, like got the same kind of star power when you think of like an Edmonton or teams like Toronto, that kind of star power, although they do have one of the best players in the game. And he just got signed to a monster deal in Kyle Connor. He kind of flies under the radar, I think, because he's in Winnipeg, but he just signed an 8-year extension for $96 million. That's $12 million a year, full no trade clause. It'll kick in after this season. And he just puts up goals season after season. Amazingly consistent, Kyle Connor. So you got to be aware of Kyle Connor when you're playing against the Winnipeg Jets. Flyers are going to have to keep an eye on him. They're also going to keep an eye on Mark Scheifele, who's off to a really nice start here as well. Through 3 games, Winnipeg is 2-1. They've had their schedule's always weird because being in Winnipeg, they opened at home against Dallas. They lost 5-4. Hellebuyck got the start in that game. They played the Los Angeles Kings at home. They won that game 3-2. Hellebuyck got the start there. And then they brought in Eric Comrie to play the third game, the first game of this road trip on Monday night in New York when they took on the Islanders. They must have got out of New York pretty quick because as the Flyers were packing up and I got done post-game after the game Monday night against Florida, I was seeing the carts with Winnipeg Jet bags being brought in already. So they came into Philly right from the island, probably had a practice at Wells Fargo Center yesterday and probably today. So they've been in town. They've been sitting in wait. Now they're in the hotels. Flyers are at home, but they will have the Flyers tonight at 7:00. And as I mentioned, Mark Scheifele, he actually leads the team in points. He's got 3 goals, 3 assists to start the year. He plays about 20 minutes of ice time. Really good player. They got some guys up and down the lineup. I really like Gabe Velarde, good young center, big body. Nino Niederreiter as well. Tanner Pearson. They got the leadership now of Jonathan Toews. I'll be interested to watch Toews in person. He's only got 1 assist so far, but he missed a lot of time, had a strange illness, I believe it was, that he was dealing with. So we will get our look at Jonathan Toews tonight, as well as the Flyers take on Winnipeg. Now, what do they kind of rank? So it's early, so it's hard to kind of look at some of these rankings and really put a whole lot of stock into them because you need a larger sample size. But so far, early this season, when you look at goals for games played, what do they average in a game? They're averaging 4 goals a game. that is tied for or fourth in the NHL. Anaheim's got 4 a game. They've got 4 a game. Montreal scoring 3.75. Flyers so far this season, of course, they have the first game of the year where they only scored the 1 goal, so that's going to hurt. But they're averaging 3 goals per game, even though that last game was really a 1-goal game, the 5-2 win over Florida. You had 2 empty netters. You had the Brink empty netter and the Dvorak empty netter. Ended up with a 5-2 final. But the Flyers right now averaging 3 goals per game. Goals allowed per games played. Now, this is where they were so good last year, Winnipeg. Leading the league, giving up the most goals right now is the San Jose Sharks. But the teams that are giving up the least amount of goals right now, Edmonton leading the way there. And the opponent tonight in Winnipeg, and again, Hellebuck's played 2 games. Comrie has played 1. Is 17th in the NHL. They're averaging giving up 3 goals a game. Flyers scoring 3 goals a game, average so far, and Winnipeg giving up 3 goals a game per average. So they're a little bit on the bottom side of the top half of the NHL in goals allowed so far this season. The Flyers right now, because they played some tight games, have only given up 2.67 goals per game. It's early, but maybe my prediction of giving up a half a goal less per game this season, 41 less goals, to get to, I think it was 242 total this year. Maybe in play. It's early, but it may be in play. We're off to a good start when it comes to that, at least. Power play. You think of all those years that they had Patrick Laine on their power play with that trigger. Again, some of these power play numbers are ridiculous. Minnesota's at 47%. These obviously are way early power play numbers. But Winnipeg is a team that on the power play so far this season, 17th in the NHL. The Flyers so far this season on the power play, it's looked a little better maybe than it's performed. The Flyers power play this season so far, 25th in the NHL, only clicking at 10%, but it definitely has looked better. The PK Flyers are at 85.7%. That is in the top half of the NHL. Matter of fact, that is exactly 12th in the NHL. And the opponent tonight in the Winnipeg Jets is 5th in the NHL at 93.3%. They just haven't given up a lot of power play goals. It's weird. Winnipeg doesn't generate a ton of shots. We talked about shots in the last episode, how it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Winnipeg generates 26 shots a game, but they allow 34.7 shots per game. Thought that was interesting. It's a pretty big disparity. Why do they allow so many shots? Is it because of the opponents they played? Are one of those teams that likes to get the puck to the net, quite a bit? Not sure. We shall see. The Flyers have not been a volume shooting team so far this year. When you look at the amount of shots they're generating per game, 21.7. I'd like to see them get a little higher than that, around that 23 to 25 range. But they are allowing 33 shots per game. So if the shots allowed per games played early are any indication, we should see pretty high shot totals tonight in this game between the Flyers and the Winnipeg Jets. So we'll see. Good opponent. Another tough test early here for the Flyers. Second home game of the season. I thought it was a great environment at the Xfinity Mobile Arena on Monday for the home opener, hoping that vibe that it continues. Now, the team can do something about that. Keep playing an exciting brand of hockey and a good result-driven brand of hockey. Those things always help. I know Rick Tocchet was on the radio yesterday on 97.5 The Fanatic with Bill Calarula and Ricky Vitalico, and listening to talk to those guys. He's a guy that when I hear him talk and his passion and talking about the team, where they're going, wanting to be a part of the solution, that as a fan, I've kind of been out of that range for a long time, being in the media for 30 some years. But that would make me kind of want to go check it out and go, what's this team all about? Let's kind of get in on a grassroots level. And you guys know this. Everybody watching this is a hockey fan or a Flyer fan, but I don't believe in gatekeeping. If you're one of those people that comes back to the team when they're on the rise or they're doing well, and you haven't sat through some of the mud and some of the really tough years that over the last 5 years have been, then that's fine. But gatekeeping is not something you're going to get from me. You want to get on the bus, jump right on. The more the merrier. So hopefully we can continue to fill up those seats. So I'd love to see as many Flyer fans pack that building and go crazy and be entertained and have a great drive home from all of those games and feel served as a sports fan all season long. Hopefully that's exactly where we're headed. So Flyers Winnipeg tonight as the early season tests continue against good opponents. Flyers will see Minnesota coming up on Saturday, another good team, another high-volume shot team in Minnesota. But eventually, maybe get a little relief. I think you can call it relief if you want to say Seattle is a team that may provide you a little relief when the Kraken come in on Monday. But I don't think the Flyers are in any position at this point to take any team in the NHL lightly. You're not there. You can't do that. So hopefully that is not a trait they pick up under Rick Tocchet. So we'll break down, obviously, Flyers Winnipeg in tomorrow's episode, but wanted to get to a couple of things in this episode. First, I want to get to this conversation regarding Sam Ersson and Dan Vlader. Then we're going to get to some of the comments from yesterday's episode, specifically about hitting in the NHL and leading or having more hits than the opposition. Because I got a lot of feedback on that. Now, Brian Smith had said to me on the post-game show after the game on Monday, really good performance from Vlader, his second really good performance of the year. He looked good in preseason. This game, to me, has looked very refined, even though the 2 goals they gave up against Florida weren't. When the second one, I thought, as we broke it down in yesterday's episode, he was a little behind on the read. The first one was just kind of a chaotic play where Sanheim goes behind him. And as a goalie, you hate when your defenseman or any of your players go behind you and, kind of prevent you from being able to move in your, through your crease or around in your crease without obstruction. But he's been good so far. It's been a good start for Vlader. He has not played a ton of games in the NHL. He's a guy that just has circumstances not allowed it. He was in Boston, and they end up with Swayman and Omark there. We know what kind of that situation, how it played out, and then they ended up in Calgary, and Dustin Wolf kind of comes a lot faster than a lot of people expected, and really kind of takes over the job there. If you read that article from Charlie O'Connor on PHLY, he talks about the deployment, though, of Dan Vlader to shield the young Dustin Wolf last year, and get the opponents he was getting were a higher quality to shield the young goaltender a little bit more. So had even though he only played in 30 games last year, started 29, and his numbers aren't like eye-popping. He had an .898 save percentage and a 2.8 goals against average, 2 shutouts on the season. Not eye-popping. They're pretty good, decent, but when you consider some of the opponents that he had to play and in the situations and on the road, it puts it into a little bit different level of context. But again, he only played 30 games last year. It was his most in his career. But prior to that, in Calgary, 1 year he played 27 back in the 22-23 season. That year he had an .894 and a 287. The next year, he only played in 20 games. He was after just 19 starts, 8-9-2. He had an .882 save percentage, not good, and a .362 goals against average, not good. But Calgary was also a team in rebuild at that time as well. But he comes here to Philadelphia, signs a 2-year contract, looks at it as an opportunity. Kim Dillabaugh, the Flyers goaltender coach, a big part of the reason why the Flyers looked at Vlader and eventually committed to 2 years with Dan Vlader. Sam Ersson's obviously been in the organization for a while, maybe got to the level of being, I guess, the pseudo starter earlier than expected because you had Carter Hart at that time, but things changed, obviously. He plays 51 games that year that Hart leaves in January. That year he ends up with a record of 23-19-7. Again, not a great save percentage, .890. I think league average around that year was probably about .907, .908. Pretty good goals against average, 2.82, 4 shutouts. Had some really dominant streaks of play. Last year, he played in 47 games. He had a record of 22-17-5. When you consider the Flyers' record last year and his record is 22-17-5, that's pretty crazy. His numbers, .883 save percentage, not good. His goals against average, 3.14, not particularly good. And this year, he's only played in the 1 game. That was against Carolina. Saw 39 shots. I thought he was good in that game. And he hasn't looked as refined to me so far through camp and preseason as Vlader. But I thought he looked really good in his performance. We'll see who goes tonight. We'll see if Hellebuyck goes for them. And I would imagine he would because Comrie went in the last one for Winnipeg. I would imagine Ersson gets the game tonight in a high volume shot situation again against Winnipeg. So we'll see where this goes. But what Brian Smith said was, we're talking about Vlader and how good he said, I don't think he was brought in here to come in and replace Sam Ersson and be the starter and that kind of thing. And I kind of disagree with him because I don't think Dan Vlader was brought in here to be the starter. I don't think Dan Vlader was brought in here to be the backup. I don't think Dan Vlader was here to play 30 games or play 55 games or somewhere in between. I think Dan Vlader was brought here because they think he's an upgrade to what they had last year. And he would come on a 2-year deal, which kind of timelines you with Carson Bjarnason, who's with the Phantoms, and Igor Zavragin, who's playing over the KHL, who are two good goalie prospects the Flyers have. So he fit from a timeline standpoint as well. He fit here from an opportunity standpoint, wanted to come to Philadelphia after doing his own research, talking to Jake Voracek, other Czech players that have come through here, had very good things to say about the Flyers organization, their reputation, for how they treat players and all of that stuff. So he's here. Now, I don't know that Vlader is not competing for the starting job. I think this is going to be an ongoing competition throughout the entire year. I hope it's a neck and neck one, because I think the team benefits from that. But if Vladar's playing well, he's going to get the bulk of the playing time. If he's playing better than Ersson, he's going to get the bulk, and vice versa. If Vladar is struggling and Ersson's playing well, then Ersson is going to get more of the nods. There's only one crease, so you're only going to play one guy a game. You're not going to split them. This isn't Pee Wee hockey. So, I think Vladar's here to compete. That's all a goalie wants. You want the chance to get in there, and when you get in there, compete your butt off. And that's one thing he's noted for, is being a pretty fierce competitor, kind of a docile guy, like in tone and personality. And what I've got to know him just a little bit so far. But there's a lot of competing in his game, and he wants to get in here and earn anything he gets. We heard that in his press conference when he was introduced. We heard it when he came on this podcast. So Dan Vlader is not here to be the 1B or the backup to Sam Ersson. No, he's here. Look, you get one career as a player. He's here to maximize it, to play as much, as well, and do as best he can. And when his 2-year contract is up, sign another one that's a bigger one and keep progressing his career. And I think this is going to be an interesting competition. You got Dan Vlader, who's a little older than Ersson. Ersson's 25 now. He's not a pup. So you got two guys, roughly in that same age of where goalies are starting to really come into their form of peak development. And there's a window of opportunity for some, 3 to 5 years, for some 5 to 9 years. It depends on the goalie, obviously. But I think it's a really healthy thing. But again, I don't think Vladar's here to be the backup. I think Vladar's brought here to push Ersson, to have a competition at the position, and to overall strengthen the goalie position, because last year it was not a strength. Ersson didn't have a great year. It was in and out of the lineup with being injured. And that's also another reason why you want to strengthen that position, because if he's injured, you want the guy to go in there. You want to have more trust. They obviously didn't have that level of trust that they have in Vlader now in Fedotov and Kolosov last year, and rightfully so. I think it's a huge upgrade, Ersson and Vlader, when both healthy, compared to Ersson, Fedotov, Kolosov, some combo carrying 3 goalies, whatever the hell's going on. So I think that this is a good thing. Vlader been very good, very good. I think there's still work to do. I like how compact he is for a big guy. Doesn't really kind of open up a lot of holes with his arms and his legs. His movements are what I would call micro movements. You see his shuffles are very, very small. A lot of goalies will take a big shuffle, which obviously opens things up. And you also get your arms involved a little bit more there. He has micro movements in the way he tracks plays across the crease and across the zone. So I've liked what I've seen of him so far. Where's it all going? I don't know. We'll see. He's off to a good start. If Ersson gets the opportunity tonight, we'll see if he can match it. And I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy. It's a really weird dynamic, the relationship of the two goalies, with there only being one crease. Because if you're an alpha athlete, you want to play. You want to go out there and help your team win. You want to go out there and be a part of it. And when you're not playing, you don't feel a part of it. When you're the backup every night, you don't feel a part of it. Like whoever the backup is to Andre Vasilevsky, when it was Brian Elliott, I guarantee Moose didn't feel like a huge part of it. Yeah, he's there in practice. He stays late, helps guys out, all that stuff. He feels part of the team, but you really don't feel as part of it if you're not playing in the games and helping to be a determining factor of success or failure. So it's a weird position to be in as a goalie, because if the guy that you're battling with is playing well, you're getting team success, which you love, and it's more fun to come to the rink. But as long as he continues to have that success, it's kind of preventing you from getting the chance to get in there and grab some of that for yourself. So it's a weird dynamic, mental dynamic to play with. And some of those goalie relationships can be very healthy, very good. I look at like a Semyon Varlamov and Sorokin in the Islanders. They're both obviously countrymen. That helps. You look at some of the situations and they're very healthy and good, and it works. Sometimes they can get toxic. It can get bad. So that's part of, I think, the demeanor the Flyers considered when they looked at Vlader as an option, was who he is as a person, as a teammate, and they know who Sam Ersson is as a person and a teammate. So that's why those two together, I think, can be very healthy. So we'll see where it goes tonight. Again, I don't know who's going to start tonight. I really don't. I don't know who ends up getting the game tonight. That's pretty crazy. You would think that they just kind of stagger them here early and go every other game because it's no clear cut, but I don't know that that's going to be the case tonight. All right, some comments from yesterday's episode where I got the email that we talked about that the Flyers need to be a lot tougher, and they really got pushed around on the ice, and they got out-hit big time in the game by the Florida Panthers. And Florida's a very physical team. I'll read the DM I got again from Chris. He said, I get it. The Flyers won the game, but Jesus Christ, why does nobody seem to have a problem that we only managed to throw 8 hits the entire game? Florida threw 24 hits. Seriously, getting out hit 24-8 in your own building? We got physically manhandled tonight, and no one is saying a word about it. If that happened to the Eagles, you'd hear about it. I'm glad the Flyers won, but did not like seeing them get slammed all over the place. By the way, hits in football, hits in hockey, not even close to being kind of the same thing. I don't mean from an inertia standpoint. I mean in relation to what's going on in the game. He said, that's not a playoff team if they're going to play like that. Hitting is a part of the game, and these players need to be complete players to win at a higher level. You look at the teams that won the Cup over the last 6 years or so, Florida, Vegas, Tampa, all of them, except for maybe Colorado, were physical teams, and Colorado was able to win because they had generational players. I guess I'm too old school. And I brought out the data that the teams that hit more in the NHL tend to have worse records than the teams that hit less. The team that hits the least last year in the NHL was the Edmonton Oilers. Team like the Carolina Panthers. No, I'm thinking NFL. Hurricanes. Why do they not hit? A lot. Well, neither of those teams are big dump and chase teams, so that prevents hits. They're puck possession, zone entry teams. And they control the puck far more than their opponent. And when you have the puck, just going to try and check somebody when you have the puck is counterintuitive and just doesn't make sense. So usually when I look at hits in a game, that tells me a lot about possession in the game. That's what it tells you. In the first period in the Flyers game against Carolina, Carolina possessed the puck 13 of the 20 minutes, to the Flyers 7 minutes. And the Flyers had way more hits because they didn't have the puck. But that's not a good thing. Now, like I said in yesterday's episode, I believe in the timely hit. I believe hits can set an early hit in the game. Go back to the shift Drew against Pittsburgh when he goes out and he lays out Sidney Crosby right in front of the Penguin bench. Then eventually on the same shift goes down and beats Marc-Andre Fleury and scores and puts the Flyers up 1-0 in that playoff game. Like I believe in timely hits, and they can change momentum, but they can't take you out of the play. And I'll be dead honest with you. The game-winning goal against the Florida Panthers on Monday night, the third goal, Couturier's second goal of the game, was caused by a player looking to make a hit and putting his team in a huge disadvantage, breaking structure. It was Sam Bennett comes out of the box, and he's a big boy, and he'll throw it around. And he's a physical player, and he's a good hitter and a great forechecker because of it. But he comes out of the box and absolutely blows up Couturier. Blows him up. Couturier is on the right side, kind of at the top of the dot. Just splatters him all over the ice. And Bennett's so fired up from the momentum of that hit that he chases now behind the net where he's already got a D covering Trevor Zegras. Now he's redundant. They just come off a penalty kill. He has a huge hit. Now he's looking to make another one on Trevor Zegras. He's chasing it. He's now totally out of position. They have 3 players in front of the net within 4 feet of the goal line, does Florida. And now they got Bennett and another defenseman behind the net with Zegras, which leaves 2 Flyer players wide open. One of them, Sean Couturier, who recognizes it, migrates to the middle. Zegras makes an unbelievable play to split those defenders, makes the cross-ice pass from behind the goal line. One-timer for Sean Couturier in goal. Flyers go up 3-2. Flyers win the game. That's what that hit did. That hit cost them the game. It did. Can you wear down an opponent by hitting them like crazy? Maybe in a playoff series to some degree. You can, and maybe it is a little more accentuated in the playoffs. I remember when the Flyers were playing the Boston Bruins in 2010 in that playoff run where they came back from down 0-3 and talking to Peter Laviolette. And Peter Laviolette would say, whenever we dump the puck, I want my guys to dump it in the corner where Zdeno Chara is. And I'm thinking, why? That dude is enormous. One of the strongest guys ever in the league and was huge, but he hated being hit. And you could see when you would hit a guy like that, Laviolette didn't want you to just like hit him, run into him, and then skate off. He wanted you to hit him and kind of lay on him, lay your weight on him for a second. So he had to like kind of push you off and exert more energy to rid you of his body. And you could wear him down that way, a big player like that. So yeah, there is something to that. But again, the calculus is not there. That hitting is being a team that hits more results in better success. It's actually the opposite. So keep that in mind. But anyway, so that's the reason why. So let's get to some of the comments from yesterday's episode. Amanda Herman says, keep positive, Jason, about your MRI. You will prevail. Keep pushing forward. And thanks, as always, for Flyers Daily. Well, you're welcome. And I thank you for your note. The Mr. Twitzer says, they denied your MRI. Oh, boy. Said, I do know that game. Isn't fun thing to pay every month just to tell you that you don't have coverage. Well, we got it. We got the MRI, so we're good there. And he said, anyway, good episode. Let's go Flyers. Steven, God bless, Jason. Keep your head up. My head is up, and it ain't going down, everybody. I'll have more update on my health by the end of this week. That I will promise you. Dwayne from Calgary says, Jason, you're like Bernie, a wonderful soul. Nice touch, my brother. Elbows up from Calgary. Go Flyers, go. And I know somebody asked me also about, I don't know if that was in here, if the number 1 is going to be on the ice behind the nets all season long. Yeah, it is. It comes from Jeffrey. He said, is the number 1 going to be on the ice behind the net all season long? I believe it is. I believe that will stay on the ice for the entirety of this season. The OGJH said, LMAO. Of course, you explained the hits while I'm writing my comment about it. The Flyers dominated the Panthers over the whole game. And the Panthers having more hits is one of the data points that backs that up. How embarrassing for the back-to-back Cup champs to get dog-walked by the Flyers. We're so back. He's feeling it. And that's right. The Flyers got out hitting the game because they had the puck more. Florida's chasing it more. And Florida has a lot of hits, generally speaking, because they are a dump and chase team. Best in the league at it. SR says, I agree with Jason. I'm more interested in a hit at the right time than overall hits. Again, this is like shots. I'm more interested in a really good scoring, grade A scoring chance shot than I am 5 shots that aren't that good, aren't high quality. He said, look at the 2 hits Florida made on Zegras. Both of them risking position to make the hit is what resulted in the goal. He said, I'm curious what the correlation between hits per game and time of possession in the offensive zone. Now, like I just brought it up, like a team like Carolina is a low volume hit team because they usually always have the puck. So that is the correlation. Yostification, always a great show. Let's go Flyers. I agree. Tom says, thanks for doing the goal breakdowns. He said, I love the nuances of the game, and I enjoy hearing about the goalie's perspective. I was hoping you'd touch on the game-tying goal since it seemed like Vlader was behind on the play, hoping for the best for your scans. Thank you for that. We did break that one down, and that's exactly what I said, Tom. I felt like the read was a little bit delayed because the initial pass to the middle is kind of not going forward or even just vertical. It's slightly backwards and ends up to the far guy. And I think he picked up the read a little late. Ryan says this year feels different. Go Flyers. It's early. Look, it is early. It's 3 games of 82. This thing's a marathon. It takes a long time. Rick said, very interesting statistic, Jason. You would think that hits would potentially lead to takeaways and maybe more goals. Sometimes you can separate a player from a puck with a good hit. Sure. He said, we all know that in a playoff series, hitting can wear a team down. I think that's to a degree. The data doesn't completely support that. He said, looking forward to this game against the Jets. The Flyers seem to play well against top teams, which tells me that either top teams take them too lightly or that the Flyers play harder against tougher opponents. Thanks for the interesting listen. And again, this morning, God bless. A couple years ago, I wondered that because the Flyers, not last season, the season prior, got a win against and points against every team in the NHL. They beat every team in the NHL but one. Now, they didn't make the playoffs. We know they missed, but they got a win against Pittsburgh. They got a win against the Islanders. They got a win against Rangers. They beat everybody but one team in the league that year. The only team they didn't get a win against that season was the Nashville Predators, but they did have an overtime loss. So they did get a point from them. That's a strange stat. You would think that a team that beat every team in the league that year, so they split with Edmonton that year. They split with Winnipeg. They split with Vancouver. They split with Calgary. Those teams, they beat all those teams. Actually, they beat Vancouver twice that year. So interesting stuff. Jeffrey said, is the number one going to be on the ice behind the net all season? We just answered that. Venom says, was the email about the hits from Chris Stewart from Stewie? No, it was not from Chris Stewart, who obviously was a very physical player and is a big boy. Tony said, ask your friend Chris if the Flyers win a playoff game with 8 hits recorded, will it count? Why so focused on such a stat when they won? It's a weird thing to complain about. I think Chris even admitted it. He's just being a little too old school. PRS Zeppelin. Is that Paul Reed Smith Zeppelin? Is that a PRS guitar? The Panthers lost because Bennett was chasing hits in his own zone in a tie game with 4 minutes left. LOL. Exactly right. Exactly right. Not only did Bennett chase the play, take himself out of it, and cause the Flyers to regain the lead, situationally, he did it right after they got a kill, which is the time when a team can grab some energy and maybe grab some momentum because you killed off a power play late in the game. But you did it with 4 minutes situationally. Just what a dumb time to do it. And I'm not suggesting Sam Bennett's a dumb player. He's a good player. That was a dumb play. So I totally agree. Well said, PRS Zeppelin. I hope you play a Paul Reed Smith. Last one. This comes from Trading His Life 420. It says, getting out hit at that rate is absolutely ridiculous. Hitting pulls players out of position, wears down the opposition, and shows tenacity and determination. Getting bullied around like this will take its toll throughout the season, and this is absolutely a legitimate concern, especially considering the way this team is currently built. The blue line is way too soft. Now, we talk about the blue line, and there is supporting data to what you're saying, Trading His Life, about the size of your blue line in the playoffs and teams advancing in playoffs. That the average size, I think, over the last, I'll say 5 or 6 years, I think the average size was like 6'3", 6'2.5", with an average weight of like 228 of the teams that got to a conference final or a cup final. So I think there is an effect to that in the playoffs, to that part of it. But getting out hit like that in a regular season game like that, I know you may think it's ridiculous, but do you want to win the hits part of the scoreboard, or do you want to possess the most important thing on the ice, the puck? Because you don't hit when you have it. You just don't. You don't throw hits when you have the puck. The game is about owning the puck. For me, the game is about, I think it's really simple in this terminology. Hockey is obviously a team sport, a flow sport. They change players on the fly. There's stoppages, there's man advantages, there's man penalties, kills, there's all that, right? The game is about momentum swings. It's about gaining momentum. When you have it, maximize it, have something to show for it. When you lose it, mitigate the damage that's done when you don't have it and find a way to get it back. And then again, try and maximize it. In that game against Florida on Monday, Florida could have gained momentum after they killed off the penalty if Bennett hadn't run himself out of the structure, but he did. But in that game on Monday, I thought the Flyers eventually maximized their opportunities better than Florida did, even though Florida outshot them. And the Flyers didn't chase plays. One of the reasons, especially the analytics community, had a huge issue with Rasmus Ristolainen, more so earlier in his career, was for doing exactly what Bennett did. He used to chase guys all over the ice to get these big hits, being a big body, and he was feared because of it. But he would also chase those hits outside the dots in the neutral zone. Huge tenet of hockey. Don't do that. Huge tenet. It's an awful situation for you defensively and structurally. And he used to do it all the time. Brad Shaw reined him in, got him to play inside the dots, make those decisions better, more decisive, and at the right time. And he became a much better player because of it. So I know the infatuation with being physical, and the team that's more physical is more dominating, and they're imposing their will. This is 2025. This is not 1975. That is not the goal of the game, the goal of the sport. The goal of the sport is to put the puck in the other team's net more than they put it in your net. It's a cumulative sport. So giving up goals is equally as not giving up goals is equally as important as scoring them, because it's cumulative. And having the puck gives you the best chance to score more than you give up. It's hard to get scored on if you don't have the puck. And it's ridiculous to be throwing hits when you do have it. All right, Flyers Jets tonight. We'll break it down tomorrow. Join us then on a brand new Flyers Daily.